Hello, welcome back everybody to the LJL Officially Unofficial. I am still your host, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi. I go by Marswell on the internet. Of course, I am joined by the Hapgood brothers, Sam and Alex Hapgood, otherwise known as Initializer Nymera. As always, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, well, I'm going to introduce myself this time. I'm Alex, I'm Nymera, I'm the Colorcaster here, and yeah, just got through game one where we saw the resurgence of Olaf Yumi. Oh wow, do I find that it's so disgusting to watch. It is just, oh man, it's so effective, and Axe has pulled off a pretty gnarly win there actually, so we're going to have to see if they can win the next one as well in game two of today.
Yeah, I mean, there was. We were wondering a little bit about whether they would go for the Yumi Soraka as the sort of the duo healing, but they just didn't need it in the end. Olaf and Yumi was more than enough, and the rest of the team brought the damage instead. So it was really good stuff from Axis on the whole. They had a great draft. They played it pretty well. They got a massive lead. So I'm looking forward to see how they do in this next one too.
Big important notice. That one win for Axis now gets them tied last place with two other teams, which one of them they're about to face off against now, that being Sengoku. So if Axis win here, obviously they are the first team to obviously play their game, so it's less of an impact initially, but it definitely can put a lot of pressure moving forward, especially for Sengoku. It's gonna be an exciting game because there's a lot more on the line for this one than probably Sengoku were anticipating. So where's your matchup going? For me, the lane matchup to watch for this is Hyde and Corporal versus Yutori Muashi versus and Entry. I think that's the exciting part now.
Yeah, I think so. I think Yutori Muashi has been the consistent player for Sengoku.
Yeah.
And I think last game we saw that Hyde was, he stepped up from his last week's games. I think that he had some iffy positioning on his Jinx last week.
Yeah.
And Corporal continues to
impress.
Do pretty well, actually. Continue to impress. I mean, he was on the Yumi, bit of a free pass of a champion there, but did a lot of value on the book, on the cat book. So for me, this game, it's a little bit less about matchup, more about drafts, because actually both these teams have drafted the Olaf. Both of these teams have done some pretty weird stuff. Axis have had some really good compositions and haven't necessarily played them out to perfection. Sengoku have had some pretty bad drafts and sometimes done pretty well with them. So it's a bit of clashing of styles here.
Well, I mean, they've both shown a willingness to run kind of Olaf plus healing, right? Because, of course, they ran the Olaf Soraka into DFM, which lost. And speaking of sort of good drafts with slightly not so good execution, the way that one worked, Apperman kind of missed a couple key wish timings, and also like DFM drafted quite well into it as well with some good disengage to prevent the Olaf getting into fights he wanted to. But we'll see where it goes. But there might well be a bit of priority on that Olaf in this draft.
It's going to be interesting because I'm not sure where the pick and bans are going to go because both of these teams have played very different comps throughout the season so far. So the first few picks and bans are going to be exciting, but I do have to agree with you, Nymera. That Yumi can't be given over to Axis. First game it comes in and immediately it's like, nope, champ's too good. No, bad. Yep. But that is an interesting point, obviously, that you made while in the pick and ban phase for the first game. This is still 10.3. We haven't moved over to 10.4 like a few of the other regions yet. And we probably won't be until potentially week 5, maybe even not till week 6. Over here at the LJL, we do move across our patches a little bit later than everybody else. We were still playing 10.2 when everybody else was playing 10.3. So
it's actually a little bit hard to keep track of it because the weeks, we do like to time travel here a little bit. And it's always a little bit hard because we're like, wait, we cast this, 2 days? These games happened yesterday, 2 days ago. What patch was it then?
Yeah.
And what patch am I playing on?
Well, with all the difficulties that EU's had over the last couple of days, I don't know what patch we're on anymore. So
what we're saying is Clash breaks EU servers. I think
obviously
that's it.
Oh, too many of us trying to play. I never played Clash, so that's something I probably should get around to doing. But I'm waffling now, and when I waffle, that means we should probably be going into the game of Sengoku versus Axis. Obviously, both of these teams have 2 wins and X amount of losses, so all to play for moving forward. Let me count us in 3, 2, 1. good luck to both of these teams.
Again, thank you, Maswan. And of course, we're into draft with Sengoku Gaming taking the blue side this time. It's Appamen in the top side, with Blank in the jungle, Pyrion in the mid lane, and of course, Yutori Miyashi and Enti down in that bot lane.
And coming off of their first game victory on the red side is Axis, top lane Unyan, jungle Hoglet, mid lane Gadiaru, and bot lane Hyde and Corporal. So we see first couple of bans coming in. Actually, it's a blue side ban of the Yuumi. Not willing to first pick it are Sengoku, but afraid of Axis' game on that so far.
Well, of course, it is a risky thing to do, and it kind of like potentially just stops that Olaf a little bit. Or if they want to go towards a first pick Soraka, they could go that way still. So we'll have to see. Elise also taken off the board. One of those stronger dive champions. We saw it kind of start to work out earlier on in that game, but the rest of the comp from Axis was just too strong for that Elise early game to make all that much impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a champion which Hoglet got the other win that Axis had on as well. They played Elise LeBlanc, played double AP Assassin. And, you know, we've managed to rattle through the rest of the bans, but it's the MF picked up for Yutori Miyashi once again in the bot lane. Really been favoring that AD carry pick above all else has Sengoku.
Yeah, and they've taken the MF first, of course. A very strong AD carry pick, as you were saying. But it's also like the Ashe wasn't that fantastic from them the last time, so I can see wanting to get a hold of an AD carry where their star AD player can use, but it is a response of Xayah Rakan.
Okay, so it's pretty strange on this current patch that we see Xayah Rakan locked in first rotation red side. Most of the time it's second rotation blue side, alongside something like Set in the top lane. That was actually banned alongside the Aphelios and the Ornn, both very good first picks, banned away by Axis. Actually, Sengoku are opening up the Morgana, a well-known Rakan counter pick, allows you to black shield the first person who gets engaged onto, and then kind of turn around onto that duo. One binding can force out Desire's ultimate, and does mean you have a lot of pressure from the 2v2 perspective.
Yeah, of course, we will see, because Morgana is also pretty damn squishy, and so could get blown up, but Pyrion gets his hands on the LeBlanc. He's had some pretty good LeBlanc games. It's one of the champions he's actually looked like he's had a bit more agency on, with some other picks feeling a little bit sort of impotent come mid-game. But the response is Gadiaru's Zoe, which was banned away from the last game, and we've seen this man on control mages. Yeah. He does quite a lot in that match.
So actually quite an explosive mid lane. Both these champions have ways to outplay the other. It'd be interesting to see which one gets the leg up on the other one. Pyrion, as you said, has gone back to that LeBlanc a couple of times. Hasn't necessarily had the best KDA, but has controlled the map pretty well. Takes the teleport on the LeBlanc instead of the Ignite most of the time, allows him to play into the side lane and pick up a lot of farm, rather.
And the Blank Knight will not have access to his Blind Monk, Lee Sin off the table, but so is Irelia. While it didn't work out in the end for Dasher last game, we saw some of how that pick can work, perhaps indicating that Appamen is thinking about going towards something like a Gangplank anyway.
Yeah, maybe something like that, although it's pretty hard to tell until we see the first couple of... Because, you know, obviously we've got the mid lane matchup sorted, but we don't have the jungle and top decided from either team. We see the Olaf actually banned away by Axis. Blank, as we said, did play that alongside of Soraka in their game versus Dead Nation Focus. He did lose that game, but was quite an interesting combo nonetheless.
Yep, and we'll see what the last ban is here. Of course, Soraka is still available. Is another one of those kind of high priority picks, but it's the Rek'Sai taking the board, so a lot of junglers off, and none of them have been picked so far.
Yeah, so Hoglet has played, to my knowledge, he's only played Olaf, Rek'Sai, and Elise.
He's played a Karthus.
Oh, he played the Karthus. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, so actually, yeah, so he's maybe has to dig a little bit deeper into the champion pool. See if he wants to go back to the Karthus. I'm not entirely sure you want to do it. It's the Sejuani, actually. Okay, and that's good. Does give Axis a bit of a front line, which they were lacking thus far. Could be Blank heading towards the Gragas, though.
And they're thinking potentially about a Gnar as well. We've been talking about how the LGL does love their Gnar. Appamen, I'm pretty happy to see him back on a champion with a bit more side lane pressure. Also going towards this Gragas now is Blank by the looks of it.
And, you know, when I tell you that this game which game would have the first Gnar of the season in for the LGL, I'd normally think it'd be Ebby heading towards it.
Absolutely.
But it is Appamen picking it up. And it is actually the Gragas locked in as the last pick for Sengoku for Blank. This is setting up to be quite a big teamfight competition from Sengoku, actually. And Axis on the other side, hovering over that GP, Eunyan did get a little bit abused and bullied around in that last game, but did end up affecting the late game team fights rather effectively. Would be a nice scaling option, but Na does have a lot of ways to power over that lane.
Indeed. And of course, you can just take out those barrels with your boomerangs, so definitely options there. But Eunyan weathered the early storm pretty well, became pretty useful in that last game, so we'll see whether we can do it again, because Gragas Gnar is a pretty powerful early ganking duo. On the other side, Sejuani is a fair amount of tankiness in Engage, and of course with a Rakan, with Sleepy Bubbles, with Cannon Barrages, they've definitely got ways to be starting fights too.
I just want to clarify, you can't kill Gangplank barrels with your Qs, no.
Sorry, I mean, it's really like, his auto attacks are boomerangs too. His auto that were really busted.
I was about to say, that'd be a very
that was a thematic point. He throws boomerangs for his auto attacks too.
Patch notes, Gnar can no longer crit on his boomerang or something. You activate static shiv. Who knows? Okay.
So I kind of realised that could have been a touch unnecessarily confusing.
And you know what? That wouldn't even be the most confusing interaction in League.
No.
We're now with Senna's Q, which counts as an auto attack, which can actually kill barrels.
And does it count as a range projectile, so it goes through wind walls and things?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, but we do have the full composition locked in from both sides here. I think overall this has come out to be in the favor of Sengoku.
Really? Okay.
I would say I think that Gangplank has a good Gangplank has a weak early lane into the Gnar a lot of the time. I think that if Afferman, who has proved himself to be one of the stronger 1v1 players, and Eunyan to be one of the weaker 1v1 players, that could be a very strong top lane to play through. I think Pyrion has been normally pretty good at slotting into side lanes as the game goes on, and with the Gnar and LeBlanc into side lanes, this MF and Morgana will be able to hold down the mid lane pretty well. MF pretty good in the mid lane as well, being able to clear out waves pretty quickly.
Yeah, and as we get into game, we're going to see how these compositions play out. Would also like to sort of reiterate your point that, the Morgana is also a bit of a counter pick into that Rakan as well. So while that is a notoriously strong duo in the Xayah and the Rakan, it's been pretty well answered here by Sengoku as well. So I imagine they've got 2, maybe 3 lanes which will have a push.
Yeah, and actually, as much as Rakan has a lot of damage as a duo and stuff like that, it's not the best duo lane in League anymore. There are ways you can counter it. It's not unanswerable. Morgana has been one of those picks which works against it. And with someone like a Misfortune who does have a lot of damage in this current meta, built towards those full AD items, with the attack speed steroid on the strut and stuff going along. Anyway, if you just slap the Black Shield on there, she can run forward and try and tear through the relatively squishy combo of Xayah Rakan.
Yeah. But on the other side, we have got those sort of late game scaling insurances of a GP and a Sejuani. One who's going to put out a lot of damage as the game gets laid out. One who is just going to become unfeasibly tanky on that. And with no trundle or anything to slice through that armor, that Sejuani could become a bit of a trouble. Hit about 25 minutes, maybe even earlier, let's be real.
Actually, Blank starting on the Raptors here with a barrel start. We see this very occasionally from Gragas most of the time, starting on the buffs, trying to go for a little bit of a different clear there. We see actually Axes trying to go for a bit of a weird level 1 positioning here.
Yeah, they got it. Yeah, that's a bit of a good start there. They managed to get into that bush, but that's just a little bit of poke onto Tomoyashi, but nothing more.
I'm not sure the heal was necessary there, because Corporal started with the E on Rakan, didn't start with the W. So the W start from the Xayah, because when you have W on the Xayah, it also affects Rakan as well with his auto attacks, gives you the extra damage. We see it popped again there.
Yeah, maybe that was just trying to get out of the auto range. We saw the W pop one more time, and it was a lot of damage.
Man.
But that's good double up.
3 Qs onto Hyde already from Yuto Tomoyashi, really using that ability well on the side of the Misfortune there. And we'll actually have Blank finishing very close to the bot side of the map here. Although I'm not sure there'll be a gank available, as the bot lane from Sengoku are pushing him pretty hard here.
Yeah, in fact, it's pushes from all of Sengoku's lanes. Gnar shoved Gangplank under tower. LeBlanc currently keeping Zoe under hers. And we just saw how those double ups went on the other side. And so much damage. Hyde just taking so much work. We can see why Yuto Tomoyashi favors this champion. He is abusing this lane right now.
And actually, with that low HP, we might even see a dive coming from Sengoku here, or at least force them off the tower, because Hyde is so low. The heal won't save him if there's a full burst coming out from the side of Sengoku. Sengoku.
Well, at the very least, Blank's going to get some wards down, going to think about
Pyrian's
going
here
towards
as
this.
well.
Yeah, they are thinking, but there's a ward. They might be TPing even. Another Blackpool coming down, and Hyde in trouble. It's a flash, and Hyde just goes down for first blood to that Misfortune. It's turned around. Hoglet didn't manage to get here, but it's a 1-for-1, and the first blood goes to the AD carry compared to the jungler.
Yeah, and the Tormented Soil not doing the most damage in this early game. So, the Binding Land actually onto Corporal there. And so there is a kill coming through onto the Xayah. This is going to be pretty important. It means that Hyde was already pretty behind on the XP already. Going to be even harder for him now to really affect this lane. But the Sejuani on the other side does get a kill, does manage to get a couple of camps because the Gragas is then off the map. We see what comes in here is that Blank wants to set up for this dive pretty early. As you said, the ward did go down for a potential teleport, but I don't think the lane was really in position for the Gnar to particularly teleport in. Then they get a good binding onto... It's a good binding block, actually, from Corporal there, but the damage has already been done onto the Xayah, not able to bring out the Blade Caller there to get any roots under tower, and does go down relatively quickly. So now Hyde is faced with a pretty big CS deficit and an XP deficit to fit.
Yep, and that was a pretty interesting little level 2 there. Of course, Axis now no summoners at all in that bot lane, which is going to be risky considering we've already seen the Misfortune out to about a 10 CS lead. We've already seen the propensity for dives to occur down there, and there is double teleport from Sengoku, who will be more than willing to repay that visit, return, show some more damage. But of course, with Pyrian having roamed, he's down a little bit of CS in that mid lane, 10 in fact, not a little bit, and is now taking a fair amount of damage from this Zoe in return.
Yeah, and actually one thing I was saying in the aftermath of that play is that at least Hoglet managed to get some CS up on this Sejuani. He's now actually, 3 camps up here. It's a good binding dodge from Hyde there, managing to at least trade pretty well at this point.
Oh,
the
another
double
up
up
again.
And you told me actually just putting so much damage down to this Xayah and showing that, well, 2v2 ain't just about the champions you pick, it's how you use them too.
Well, what I can also say is, like, with those Tormented Souls coming down and just lowering the HP a little bit of those minions, not necessarily killing them, but lowering them, it's just more targets for the double up to be functioning on, and it means there's less safe places to be standing for that Xayah.
Yeah, and actually, and one of the other things is that because
kill blank. Oh. If only he got the kill.
Going, but at least Tussle is here. Maybe he can get over this wall. He's got the repel. Doesn't have vision though, so but that's a decent barrel over the back there. Does about a third of Honey's HP before he can heal it, but that's a decent bullet. The Vengeance has stolen it.
Okay, so we're in an interesting spot so far. I'm not really sure who I truly favor. Obviously, we've seen Sengoku play a lot around this bot lane so far. But I don't know how effective it is going to be in the whole grand scale of everything, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's going to be a complete payoff in the long run.
I get what you mean, but there is a prevailing opinion, particularly from people like Wolf, ex-SKT support, two-time world champion. He's been doing a lot of LCK VOD.
He has, yes.
And one of the things he's said about Morgana picks in particular is that she is broken if she wins lane.
Okay.
And that's largely because, Morgana loves to be able to freely roam, be freely on the front foot throwing out bindings and then using the soul shackles as well in these big team fights, but you can't do that with as much impunity if you don't get yourself to the Zhonyas and stuff like that.
And there will be a conversation about that because actually, while I think the CS lead has gone the way of Utromashi, and actually we're back in the game, so we'll continue this.
Bye-bye.
See ya, Lexi. Pleasure talking to you briefly. And it was a really good conversation because, of course, it's actually 2 plates taken on each side of those bot lanes because they've been pushing back and forth, even if the CS lead has gone the way of the Misfortune. Second Drake picked up for Gragas, rather. That's the one we're thinking of. as that came around, and it will be Infernal Rift. So a lot of priority on these Drakes, methinks.
Yeah, and Infernal Rift is pretty broken on LeBlanc of all people, able to just W forward, have a Q, get the Ludens, and just off of one ability get the Infernal, the Ludens, and just have a whole heck of a lot of burst.
Yeah, and a fair amount of poke coming out from this Gangplank, who is throwing boulders around with impunity. Hasn't managed to take any plates, though. Does have a bit of a CS lead, but that's not going to matter when, as we said, that Gangplank does get to literally print money with his key.
Yeah, and that's why they are in this slight gold advantage. And I do think that Sengoku do have a really scary team fight between the Gragas and the Gnar. But when you play around a Gnar, you do have to work with the Rage Bar. So that could end up being a point of contention in this game if they don't properly do that. Obviously, if you fluff the engage versus a Gangplank and then the Cannon Barrage comes down, you're in a pretty messy spot. You have that slow and damage coming through. Does turn team fights on a dime.
And Gangplank has backed and picked himself up a force of 3 powers. That Trinity Force completed and ready to rumble, doing a lot of damage with that item. In the response, though, Gnar has gone back and not quite got himself a Black Cleaver. So that's that gold advantage really.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it looks like he's heading towards the Tabby as well. We'll give him extra pressure extra survivability in that 1v1. And yeah, so I think
indeed.
I mean, GP's in a happy place.
Indeed, but on the other side, Misfortune is at that Essence Reaver break point where Xayah is still stuck on a Coalfields and a crit cloak. So going to be feeling a little bit sad is, of course, that Xayah, that's the word, thank you. I was looking at a Sleepy Bubble land, but there was a Black Shield in the way, so I was thinking, am I going to have to switch modes to talking about damage? But we're all right. And we've seen a lane swap come in as well. Gnar and GP now matching up in the bot side as the duo lanes meet up in the top side. Australia lanes now enacted.
Yeah, and I'm actually wondering myself which team has the easiest composition to play in a team fight. Because on one side, you have the Gnar. That is a very difficult champion to play in team fights in a lot of ways, unless you're very far ahead in the game and you're winning a lot of side lanes and all the things and bells and whistles that come with it. So actually, Afferman gets the ult into tower there.
Yeah, it does, but the oranges are forced out, but that means as people are coming down and the ult is no longer available. It's going to dive onto Apperman here and he's taking all the damage. Does go down.
He does go down. There's actually no response on the other side of the map besides a tower push from Sengoku. There's nothing like a Baron to spawn right now. There is actually the Herald coming up very quickly, seeing if they'll go for that on this side here. It's actually Blank going into Corporal there. Nothing really more than a body slam, though. Yeah,
of course, has the battle dance to get himself out of there because he is Rakan and Xayah is close by. So that problem has been solved, but you're right, the Rift Herald is started. Second one of the game. And this will be an interesting decision about what goes on here. Whether that kind of killing the bot side will be worth it compared to the Rift Herald, but the tower went down as well.
It's also the first tower bonus.
Indeed, you're absolutely right, and this Gangplank is now seriously ahead, 1-0-1, and has the first tower to his name.
Yeah, so a Herald can kind of be a tower in the bank. It does mean you can kind of take one later. So maybe you can kind of say, well, it's a kill and a tower to 2 towers. Maybe it's not an immediate tower, obviously not the immediate gold advantage. But it is the gold going over to the Gangplank. As actually Perion might be able to find a kill onto Hyde here.
Forces that, but misses the chain. Ult down for the Xayah, but no kill threat.
No kill threat. Actually, I feel like that was really well played from Hyde. Avoided the distortion there and the sigil pop as well. And then the chain goes wide, kind of reducing any and all remaining kill threat as well. Wouldn't have had enough damage to 100-0 him at that point. Well played from Hyde, even though it is at the cost of the ultimate there.
Yep, but the ult is down, and of course that Infernal Drake will be up in 50 seconds. I believe Xayah's ult will not be up in time for that, but it will be a bit swift.
Because it's at first rank, it will just be off call. If they manage to delay it by another 20-30 seconds, yeah, it will be back up. But it depends how Axis wants to get control and who gets priority on this dragon.
Indeed, of course, Sengoku Gaming, while the ganks have been back and forth, the Drakes have not, and they have now got that one to their name. Or they've got 2 of them to their name, rather. And we'll see how it continues to go as Blank now trying to force Axis out of this side of the jungle.
Yeah, and actually Blank there, just kind of threatening with the CC, has the Black Shield as well to stop any immediate engage coming through. Utomi actually also in position to layer down a bullet time. It's a lot of threat into this period, this part of the jungle right now.
Yeah, of course, Apperman is currently Mega Gnar, but that bar's going to run out, and the Drake has gone live, which means that Rage Bar will not be ready for this Drake spawn.
Yeah, however, you're right, there's not going to be the Xayah ult available, even with the delay, actually. There's just not got the second rank ultimate here. It's actually Utomi actually running forward.
Yeah, I got that was a decent make it rain, causing the slowdown there, but that means the Rift Herald summoned in the mid lane for the priority that we've seen over Drake's. It's often used for, but of course, Uinyan is just sitting in that river. How Axe is going to respond? They're going to get a fair amount of damage on this tower, Sengoku Gaming. They might even just stick around to try and take it. Period takes some damage! He just got rooted, and he didn't get back to the Distort, but they've taken out the clone. No!
Oh yeah, but the ult does land there, gets a big chunk onto Perion. Does have the teleport though, might not be as impactful a chunk as it could have been onto any of these other champions without the teleports available to them, but it's Axe is actually starting up the dragon very quickly here. The Xayah ult is a couple of seconds off cooldown as well, but this is a very low HP Xayah regardless.
And we're looking at a Gnar that it's edging ever closer towards the mega point. Is Blank going to go over? No, but here comes Apperman. Is he looking for an engage? Maybe, but Axe is so far so good on the disengage, and they're out.
And Axes kind of problem solve their way to getting themselves a Infernal Dragon there and breaking the streak of 2 in a row for Sengoku there, giving themselves the extra offensive stats as actually a good chunk onto Yutori Miyashi there from Gadearu.
I want to say, was that with a flash picked up by the Zoe to add in that extra damage? Did a lot of work there, but of course, not enough to force Yutori Miyashi out of the lane, had enough of healing and pots to keep him there.
Absolutely. So now we're going to kind of get back into a bit more of a calm state of the game. No more heralds to spawn at this point, and then we've got a bit of a reprieve from the dragons on the Rift 2. So probably just folding back into this three-lane style of play in which actually this Gangplank is thriving remarkably well.
Yes, and of course this is Apperman, a man who just loves to split push. But even so, this Gangplank is an item up on him. He's very nearly at that Essence Reaver. He's just the completion cost away.
Yeah, and as much as I like Gnar in team fights, the main reason I would have liked it in this competition, and the reason I said in Champions Select that I thought that Sengoku had the better handle on the draft coming into this game is that normally the Gnar is meant to put Gangplank through the ringer a bit, and it's not happened so far. It's been well played by Hoglet, having another good game on the Sejuani, a good early game to kind of go into that kill onto Gnar as well into the mid game.
Perion's a bit caught here maybe, but Hoglet does back away, so never mind that. I saw Perion pushed up, but is a LeBlanc is aware that he might be getting gapped, but actually comes in engaged, and that's a lot of damage onto this Xayah, who just goes down. The bullet time is enough. Corporal goes down as well. That's 2 out of nowhere for Sengoku Gaming.
Yeah, and actually, I was just about to praise Corporal for his positioning on putting himself between Blank and Hyde there to make sure that he couldn't get hit by a body slam because he would have to flash over the Rakan there, but then Hyde kind of gets caught anyway there, and Corporal goes down as a result of the play as well. The binding hits after the body slam. No ult. Well, the ult wasn't used in time. It is quite hard to react to the body slam flash, and it's 2 kills against the run of play, I would say, for the side of Sengoku.
It's not just 2 kills, it is that mid lane tower, and actually this bot side is also taking a fair amount as it happens.
So look at this. So Corporal is putting himself between the Gragas and his carry there, but then Hyde kind of takes this odd down step there, gets caught by CC into burst, uses the ult anyway, and kind of dies, I don't think you have to use the ult there because it is a long cooldown. It means that you're going to be a bit stunted in your next fight as well. Bit sad there. Now sad with 0, 3, and 2 on this Xayah. Not having... I mean, he had a good early couple of plays, but did suffer in lane somewhat as well, even though I think mechanically he was playing all right up until that point, playing pretty well up until that.
There was the good flash to avoid the flash body slam.
Into the root.
Yeah, no, that was nice.
Yeah, but one good play does not a good game make.
Nope, highlight reels aside. But of course, Zoe pushing in that top side, LeBlanc pushing in the bot, and that'll probably be a trade of towers, I imagine.
And this is actually like a 26 CS lead, a 36, almost a 40 CS lead for the Zoe over Perion's LeBlanc here as well.
Multiple TPs to the bot side going not quite right, isn't it?
Yeah, as well, and also just Gadearu being... wave clearing so much this game and finding a lot of extra farm across the map, and it has led to near about 600 gold lead onto that specific matchup. Zoe finding herself a lot of gold in this game and going to be pretty strong going into the later stages as well.
Yeah, but of course, while the Zoe and the Gangplank are feeling pretty happy with their gold totals, Miss Fortune is also very happy. That's a lot of gold onto that carry.
Yeah, that's like 1,600 gold just onto in the lead for Yutori Miyashi in the AD carry matchup, although Eunyan has been thriving in the top side as well. Got to the second item now, has the Essence Reaver alongside the Trinity Force. 40% CDR, level 13 means those barrel combos will be permanently available, meaning the wave clear will be ever present in those sidelines.
But Miss Fortune is at her 2 crit items, has herself an Infinity Edge to join her Essence Reaver, and that will really sting whenever she decides to press an R button.
Oh, Hyde actually forced to use the ult there. That's, I don't know if that binding was going to hit. If it did hit, it might have ended up in a kill there. But once again, Hyde just getting a little bit caught out and being punished for it.
And it does mean that he has to be very careful stepping forward, that if he ever does get hit by another bind, there is a bullet time that will happily claim his life.
But this time, it's within 10 seconds of the dragon spawning, so that will be very impactful.
Yes, it will, but this Drake is going to be a big one to contest as well. Infernal Drakes always a big prevalence and priority for teams, even if they are half the percentages they were from last year. You're right, the chunk did land, but of course it is a Gragas who just goes and heals straight back up off his Raptor Cap. And that will be the end of that chunk, but the Infernal Drake positioning game begins once more as Yutori Miyashi takes a ridiculous amount of damage from a barrel there. That's a good engage down here. Blank has gone for the stopwatch. That means that the Glacial Prison misses as well. But he's caught in the middle of nowhere and he's just gone. But there is still this LeBlanc over the side here with the Banshee's Veil, but there is no smite to contest. Sengoku Gaming are now 4v5. They're going to try and go in. That's a decent amount of damage onto Hyde from the LeBlanc. She's going to keep poking in. Going to try and keep doing as much damage onto the Hoglet, but that's a nice and Arctic Assault to keep away. That's a binding, though, onto Corporal, taking a lot of damage, too. And you're right, the Rage Bar is here, is doing as much. Flash in from Appleman. Going to think about it. Yes, he's got it. That's a good stopwatch. Corporal now taking damage, but Appleman caught all by himself, goes down as well. And
Gariadu!
Gariadu's in the backside, and what is going on? That is Sengoku Gaming going down now. That is another death, and Appleman just goes in by himself.
Hoglet with the huge stopwatch there to stop the Mega Gnar having the impact it would have likely had if the jungler had gone down. It's not just the dragon which goes down, it's 2 kills as well, going the way of Axis, and a mid tower as well. Is this a huge momentum shift in this game? Make no mistake.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Blank get caught out a little bit first off, and then Enti and Apperman go down in this replay. So we see what happens to Blank.
So we see vision control established by Axis here. The quickness comes down from the Rakan here. It ties up the Gragas before the Black Shield can come in, and then he's just kind of lights out from that point. Forced to use the stopwatch after the CC wears off, and then it's a 5v4 without the team fighting jungler. Even though the dragon is aggroed onto Hoglet here, taking down a good amount of HP, Gadiadu manages to find good damage on the side here as well, constantly just chucking empowered auto attacks onto the team of Sengoku, and Yutori Miyashi never really gets into a good position to use a bullet time here. The Morgana goes down from the side of Sengoku, and then after that point, Yutori Miyashi just kind of has to turn tail and run, and eventually gets out at least.
Yeah, but that was another good Drake play from the side of Axis, who have started to really impress me. We were kind of very down on them in the first few weeks, but they have seriously improved faster and more efficiently than nearly any other team in the league.
Yeah, and I think that last week I thought Gadiadu was the standout player. I think he was playing very well. I think Corporal also had a very good game this week, and in both the games we have seen so far, this one included, of course, it's really been Hoglet which has been standing up and saying, hey, you got to pay attention to me. I have what it takes to be one of the better junglers in the league if he carries on this form. Had the Olaf game last game.
Another quickness comes in, and Blank is taking a lot of damage, does flash out, but it's a decent disengage, keeps him alive. But Gariaru is throwing all the damage in the world up, but the Black Shield just keep him alive. Pyrian's trying to swing into the backline onto Gariaru, but it's just not enough damage.
It is a good chunk, though, and it might give them a little bit of positioning to get some vision around this Baron, push up the mid lane, get mid priority, and then start to de-ward this Baron pit.
Yeah, and of course that is a Luden's Proto Belt and Oblivion Orb for this Zoe, which means all that flat pen is going to be quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, and its level, it's 40% CDR coming out of Galdearu as well, with the Luden's 20%, Proto Belt 10%, and then Transcendence Rune from the Sorcery Tree, bringing you up to that 40% maximum. So a lot of different skill shots flying out of this level 16 now, Galdearu. There's a lot of poke to be had.
QSS picked up by Yu Torimayashi, frustrated by his inability to step forward and actually put down consistent damage. You saw in that last fight, he was the strong carry, couldn't get a bullet time out. With the QSS, maybe that'll give him more options to do that.
Yeah, and while Yutori Miyashi is once again started a very good KDA on this Misfortune, is struggling to impact the team fights like you've been saying. This has kind of been a consistent story for Sengoku, finding it pretty hard to find the clean team fights at the very least.
Yeah, of course this game is still very close. It's about a K.5 in the advantage for Axis, but it's 2 Infernal Drakes to a mountain and an ocean. And as those Infernal Drakes stack even more, things like the Zoe poke are going to become truly obnoxious.
Yeah, they are, and particularly in the LGL, where we love to fight around Dragon's Tail, we love to fight around objectives. If you can stall people at those objectives, it does make the value of these poke champions ever more useful.
It's a good catch. It does take a lot of damage, has to cleanse. Pyrian went over that wall. Did if I remember, that's another ult forced from this Xayah as Pyrian goes forward for some more poke onto Galdearu as he portal jumps forward.
Yeah, and that's another Xayah ult out. At least this time it's rank 2 with a beta CDR, but it still will be down for the Infernal Dragon spawn in just over a minute, I have to think.
Yeah, but Sengoku Gaming thinking about starting this Baron. There's a ward just to the side that's going to spot them out, but that's using that aggressive health bar advantage to their best as they can, at least. Hogla over the back, though, and Sengoku Gaming just disengaged.
I think so, like, you can't actually threaten that Baron while the Cannon Barrage is up, really. You don't have a good tank if Gnar is not there to tank up that Baron, which means that the Cannon Barrage can swing around these fights so massively when you have the likes of the Rakan and the Sejuani flying in alongside it, too.
Yeah, and we're seeing waves pushed in pretty far for the likes of Sengoku Gaming, but that means actually in 20-odd seconds they'll be bouncing right back to their side of the map when the dragon's spawning. So that might not be the best timing for them on those wave pushes.
Yeah, so we see Eunyan push up the top lane, recall, see if he can get the Infinity Edge before this next fight, actually. He's just gone back to base. He's getting ready to TP. He doesn't have the Infinity Edge going into this fight, though.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a shame, but it's still pretty fair. Does have a lot of damage. Has got a crit cloak, at least, to his name on top of that Essence Reaver, so should be hitting for some fairly decent crits.
Yeah.
Another Binding Lands from NT, but it's all the way onto the back. But that Infernal Drake is just taken out by Black. I thought that was more exciting than it was.
It was setting up to be something pretty big, but Sengoku find the timing, the lapse in control from Axis at that point, and do get themselves their 3rd dragon of the game, get themselves onto Soul Point on the blue side of this rift.
Yeah, but Axis moving over to claim some vision control for this Baron. And of course, as I was saying, I was a bit worried about the timing on those wave pushes. I needn't have been. They were in the right place at the right time. Forced Axis to go and respond as that Drake was spawning. So well played with the side wave pressure, from Sengoku Gaming.
And also Galdearu not quite managing to find the poke that time. There were no big chunks to be had. Just once again, they're just missing. But things are, each time one of these is threatened, you do feel the a bit of panic. As soon as one of these skill shots heads towards you, actually Pyrian walks into the gangplank there.
Yeah, it takes a lot of damage, does he? But Eunyan now stuck in a bit of a dodgy spot, but it's a decent, just a fantastic bullet time, actually. I take that back. Eunyan forced to flash away there, despite having started that engagement.
Yeah, bit ballsy from Eunyan there. Knows that the full team of Sengoku is there. Does manage to trade for the bullet time at least, but it's a lot of pressure going to be ceded by the side of Axis now for that play.
Yeah, and of course it's the Gangplank ult down as well on top of that. So it's not even like it was a completely free trade. A Glacial Prison as well, so that's 2 ults for 1 and a flash.
It is, yeah, and this is at a point in the game where you do really want that Cannon Barrage to be up to be able to dissuade a couple of those harder engages from Sengoku too.
And Misfortune going to continue to shove open this bot side where that wave had managed to make its way, but that's quite a lot of barrel damage that's holding that down, but Yutomeshi claims the tower anyway.
Yes, he does. So that is now 4-3 in terms of towers to the side of Sengoku, and it does bring the gold to just under a 1.5 gold lead to Axis.
Yeah, but as we said, it's 31 minutes, 1,000 gold lead, 1,500 gold lead means not all that much.
Yeah, and I have, looking at both these mid laners, both of them want to kind of be poking out, trying to get some big chunks before the fight starts. We've seen Pyrion jump in multiple times now onto various members of Axis, try and get that QR combo, the double sigil, into a chain as well, but it's just not doing the same amount of damage that Gauriaru has available to him if he hits his combo.
Of course, with the Banshees, for at least Pyrion has a certain amount of safety, because it is always a risk diving into things like a Xayah and a Sleepy Bubble. Or in fact, even things like the Glacial Prison on top of that as well. So I can understand the Banshees pickup. It makes a lot of sense to allow the LeBlanc 2 to dance forward, but it does limit the damage, right?
It does, yeah. And one of the other things which Gauriaru is afforded by the Zoe pick is that, well, I mean, when you go for a portal jump, you know you're going to return to your starting spot, whereas Pyrion needs the Banshees to kind of like deny the first CC if Rakan wanted to instantly engage, means that he does have the ability to flip back to his distortion. Actually, both champions are relatively similar in that regard, going for the poke combos, then flipping back to their original starting position.
Binding lands onto Hoglet, but nothing's going to come of that. Apperman decides he is the split pusher today, and has got his Black Cleaver, has got himself a Randuin and a Spectre's Cowl, so ready for team fights, and going to keep pushing these waves in best he can.
Yeah, but actually we now see the Gangplank at 3 items. That hugely scary crit point with the Infinity Edge and the Essence Reaver alongside the Trinity Force as well. So a very scary pirate to be watching out for in this game.
Yes, he is, and if one of those barrels happens to land onto that Misfortune, that could be lights out for Sengoku Gaming in a team fight. On the other side, we've seen Hyde's ultimates forced out in inopportune moments a few times this game, and if that kind of continues, we could see the Xayah being punished pretty hard too.
Yeah, well, at least the Yutari Miyashi does have a Bloodthirster, so if there is a wave around after getting hit by one of those barrels, not actually as impactful as it could be onto someone like, say, LeBlanc. If you do manage to get a good barrel down there, less sustain to be worried about, because the Bloodthirster does give you a whole heck of a lot of healing.
Yeah, just checking in on the state of the rift as well. The Infernal Drake number 4 about to spawn in, about 45 seconds at this point, and that will be the Infernal Soul on the line for Sengoku Gaming. So I'm expecting this pause in action to be over very shortly. As Pyrion dancing forward one more time, trying to get onto that Skullcrab, doesn't quite manage to claim it, and that means that Axis will have uncontestable vision over here as the Drake spawns.
Yeah, and actually this time Hyde will have his ult available to him. That's not going to be the same as it was in the last couple of Dragon fights, because that was forced out pretty early. Gauriaru is not around to try and poke around this, though. He's currently clearing in the mid lane.
Yeah, and of course that's because Sengoku Gaming have done another good job of getting these waves pushed in at the right times. 10 seconds is 10 seconds until the Infernal Drake spawns, and the waves are pushing into towers.
Okay, Gauriaru is now here, but Pyrion and Gauriaru are trying to achieve the same thing. Land your skill shots, try and get
Binds landed onto Corporal, he's just taking so much damage, he's gone!
He is gone as well, but there's a lot of ults committed there from Axis.
Yeah, but it's all over nothing. It's just that cannon barrage in the middle of nowhere, and Apperman's about to transform. Pyrion dancing forward, but he's now caught in the back of the pit. Apperman hops over, but it means it's a 5v4. Apperman's got teleport going to back and try and come back in. And that means that Sengoku Gaming have the man advantage for now, but all the damage is still available for the side of Axis. Gauriaru takes a fair amount of damage now from the LeBlanc, and the Drake is started by Axis. Still unhappy, can't be willing. Gauriaru's going to take so much damage. He goes down, and never mind, that damage is still there. Look at the bullet time damage as well. Yutamashi has to flash away from the Featherstorm, but Uinyan now stuck in no man's land, and Pyrion has found all of the damage. A triple kill for the LeBlanc.
And it's a huge minute to 2 minutes of play from Pyrion. Gets some great damage down on this LeBlanc. It starts with Corporal getting caught on the Rakan. He's trying to look for some inroads, trying to look to see if he can get any burst, and he sees C down, but gets caught out by Blank's Cask. And then after that, it's Pyrion jumping forward, jumping back, and now they have the Infernal Soul to their name.
Yeah, and it's not just Infernal Soul, it's 3 members down, and long death timers mean that Sengoku Gaming can start up this Baron with a lot of damage on the table. It took them a little while to find a clean team fight, but eventually Pyrion found the poke, and they're going to claim a Baron from this as well.
It's a Baron of 5 members too, and we were saying in the pregame that, in the draft, that actually Sengoku have a pretty good 3-lane setup here with the Gnar and the LeBlanc, and now they'll have an Infernal Soul to both wave clear and poke out anyone that could come and try and stop them, and then also have the Baron buff to push 3 lanes in. So, coming back into this
Tyrion find
replay.
all this poke?
So, what we see is the binding land onto Corporal. It's out of vision from Corporal. That ward in the brush there was cancelled by that control ward, and then they try and do a turnaround engage, but none of the skill shots land at that point, just a little bit too far removed is Sengoku from Axis, and Hyde, as much as he tries to walk forward and do a lot of damage on this, Xayah just doesn't manage to finish off any people, even with the large amount of damage he does have on this AD carry right now. And then after this point is 5v4, and Pyrion finds some very good poke across the board. This is the key one. Gaudiado walks forward. It's the double sigil, and the chain lands afterwards to proc
Rank
that.
3 bullet time.
Yeah, and then Yutorimashi also has a pretty decent old F flashes away at the end of it. Unyan kind of left to cry alone a little bit at the arrows. The rest of his team's fallen around him.
Right, and as we come back to live, the push continues. It's about a 2,000 odd gold power play for the side of Sengoku Gaming, but with their double TP, they are very happy to split up into 3 lanes and ensure that the towers start going down. Wave management has been really good from this team this game. We talked about it. That kind of earned them 2 Drakes in some ways. That first Drake they got because of the waves pushing at the right time. That second one, they managed to get decent waves in as well. And Yutorimashi just steps forward for the kill there, using the Bloodthirster shield to make sure he can claim that turret without a wave.
Yeah, and you know what the real big cojones move is? 5-0 and 2 on the LeBlanc. Pyrion has picked up a Medjay's with 10 stacks.
And that's
actually
a lot of damage. Oh my days. Bind, ult, and then the bullet time there. Nearly claiming the lives of Axis is Hyde. But that means the tower is now undefended as Pyrion takes that tower in the top side. That was just from a 1-3-1. You expect the pressure and the aggression to come from the side of Axis, but no. Good bind lands, and suddenly Hyde is no longer available to defend towers.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. With the Infernal Soul, actually, we see an engage into the mid lane here.
Blank taking a lot of damage, and I think he's just going to disappear. But Yutorimashi is putting a fair amount out, but has no bullet time in response, and that means that they at least get a kill back. But the look at that. Oh, it goes 2 kills. I apologize. But not just that. At least the inhibitor went down to the top side, and the tower went down in the bot side too. So turned around from Axis. That probably stunt any more Baron pushes. But damage has been done. Base has been broken. At least a little bit of recompense claimed by Axis though in response.
Yeah, however, it's a good effort from Axis to kill off the supporting cast from Sengoku. It's a lot of damage coming through from this Moist Fortune now. Imagine if that's a champion, if that's Hyde, that's a very dead Cyrus. Actually, Pyrion walks forward onto Unyan there. Probably has him within kill range at this point. Does have a lot of damage now. Kind of gone past the mid-game dip, which you do get a little bit when you build towards Merc Treads and Banshees Fell. Has himself a Nizzy Large Rod, and as you were saying, that Medjay's too.
Yep, and got himself a Morello as well. Got that completed. Grievous Wounds and a little bit of health got offered to him. Probably not the worst thing into a Gangplank, I guess, if you want to be side laning into that. But,
it's not awful. One thing which is important to note as well, both AD carries have Mercurial Scimitar now.
Yes.
We've seen multiple times Hyde get caught out by some good bindings from NT, playing a pretty good game on this Morgana. Has died twice, obviously, but it's a little bit hard. When actually he's walking up again, he's going to die a third time.
What?
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Hyde walks forward and culls the Morgana where she stands, just kind of walking through no man's land there, and gets just jumped on by Hyde, not even having to use any abilities or summoners of worth there. That might even set up the map pretty well for Axis going towards this Elder Dragon spawn in 1 minute 30.
Well, that was a pretty key pick there. NT so confident about how things are going. But Unyan now caught in the top side, going to take chains here. That's a lot of damage, and I don't think he's going to be able to get out, but he does with the flash. I take that back. Yutorimashi clearing out this wave in the mid side as well.
But now with Pyrion with teleport and a good winning lane match versus Gangplank, he can actually push in to threaten Nexus towers as this Elder Dragon spawns maybe. He does have the teleport, as you were saying. Might choose to channel a recall. Not doing so right now, though.
Yeah, just making sure that he's not being collapsed on. And, of course, Elder Drake spawning in 50 seconds. And whoever picks that one up is nearly sure to win any fight coming up. These teams, already pretty closely matched in those fights, would be even more... Well, we get tilted, rather, by that. So it wouldn't be even more even.
Oh, Pyrion dancing back onto Hogla.
Yeah, it does about half the HP trade, actually. That's a lot of damage, and that's a 4-level advantage. for the LeBlanc onto that Sejuani, and however tanky Sejuani gets, it's not that tanky.
Yeah, but there is still 30 seconds up until the Elder will be able to recall maybe... Oh, it does actually have the Warmogs, in fact. I was going to mention that earlier, but it slipped my mind at that point as well. So it actually has regened up pretty high on this Sejuani.
All the way back up.
Yeah, exactly. So, actually now, we see that with the LeBlanc trying to poke with the Infernal Soul, as is the Misfortune with the Make It Rain. There's a lot of posturing here.
Mega Gnar is out and won't be available for a little while, but that's
Crumble
another
again.
good pick from this LeBlanc. Bullet times down, but not onto loads of people. But Gario takes a huge double up and crit from that Misfortune in payment for portaling so aggressively forwards. And Apperman now, they're standing in the front, has a GA, and that's another binding going forwards. And that was a late QSS. It was not going to work. And now this Elder Drake is started. Corporal is so damn low, and so is Gariaru. Pyrion dancing forwards, throwing out this poke. Sengoku Gaming daring Axis to step forwards.
But actually, now there are waves pushing into the base. The double TP to end.
They are, and I don't think they're going to be able to get back because Yutori Miyashi is here to stop that return. Incoming hit, like Blank.
He's going to cancel it.
He's cancelled it. You're right. That's the body slam, and it means that there is a free push for the two members of Sengoku Gaming. This backdoor is complete. They just can't back. It's two people here. GG Sengoku Gaming. Wave manipulation and double teleports win them this one.
And Hogley is dancing in the face, knowing that it is too late to save the game. Does end actually deathless on the Sejuani, but deathless doesn't matter when your Nexus is dead. Mass Swarm, we're going to bring back to you for the post-game thoughts. Crazy game, huh?
That was, I mean, there's two brand new clips that just went up on our Twitter during this game about that. Plug the Twitter. Plug the Twitter. That's another one we're plugging now. Plug the podcast, plug the Twitter. That game was action-packed at, like, so many moments. There was so many things that were happening all at one time. I could barely even keep up with everything else I've got to do. It was just phenomenal. Every player of Sengoku stepped up. There was, like, if one of the members slightly fell behind or wasn't doing what they quite should have been doing at multiple points in that game, it would have fallen apart for them. Congratulations to them. Commiserations to Axis, who looked strong and still in it, even towards the end of that game.
Yeah, and I feel like, I think that, Gariaru versus Pyrion was a really fun lane to watch this game. Gariaru finds some really good picks, really good damage earlier into the game. But then eventually, after Pyrion picked up a couple of items, and then there was a couple of fights which went his way, really turned on the heat and just blew people up with the Infernal Soul on this LeBlanc, did a whole heck of a lot of damage.
It was just amazing.
Yeah. It was, I mean, like, we saw early on some advantages for Axis in their solo lanes. They got a fair amount going. The Gangplank got a lot of plates, got a lot of gold. Yep. But on the other side, Yutori Miyashi on that Misfortune got all the golds and all the item. And, like, it took them a little while to find a good team fight. Gariaru was putting up some good poke. Corporal found some good picks. But when they did find those sort of, like, later game fights when LeBlanc had kind of got past that dip, once they'd started kind of winning out in the side lane kind of wave manipulation, we saw some really nasty bullet times coming out.
And actually, just following on that point, just quickly, I mean, the two really big picks, the two which led into the big fights just around Dragons, were Morgana binds onto Corporal into a cask from the Gragas as well. There was some really good vision control from Sengoku to set up those kind of things, and NC, as much as he had a couple of duff moments, obviously that one where he just kind of randomly walked across mid lane and died, he had arguably the two most important kills in that game on the Morgana onto the engaged tool of the Rakan.
I mean, something to play notice that I've just noticed on my other monitor that I happen to have, the goal difference over time. For most of this game, actually, Axis were ahead. And not just ahead, they had like 2k ahead at most of the, like for a lot of this game. So this game was very much in Axis's wheelhouse. The only difference was Sengoku were playing around the objectives slightly better. From my observation, I would argue that objective control was more on Sengoku. Axis just kind of had the gold lead, but Sengoku had the better team fights. It was very interesting.
Early and late, I agree. I think in the mid game we saw
Axis do pretty
well. At least because I remember they got the couple of the Infernal Drakes that went quite well, partly because
they weren't able to close that out.
No, they weren't, and that was, and so like that was good from Axis to kind of come back in on that front, and I think things and getting the Gangplank and the Zoe to a point where they could contest those fights was good work.
Because remember that one fight around leading up to one of the dragons where Blank got picked in River in the River Brush by Corporal?
Yes.
The first Infernal Drag, which kind of broke their 2-dragon streak, and then
check out Twitter for that clip.
Nice. And then we had the 2 Infernal Drakes back-to-back for the side of Axis when they were in a really strong position. But then basically the picks started coming in and the pokes started coming in from the side of Sengoku, and they just kind of like hit the skill shots, had good vision control to set up for them, and Axis just got picked off.
And it's going to be in a very well, I am personally looking forward to seeing more from this Sengoku. This just seems to be a Sengoku that is not only drafting better, but also just kind of playing better as a cohesion unit. That was the impression, obviously, we're going to have to see from their second game. And moving on, that second game is going to be Sengoku Gaming versus V3 Esports. This is definitely going to be a very exciting game to get into, but we will get right into that game straight after our break. Thank you so much for watching so far.